Hi, this is Linda with the Publishing Circle. A question for you. Do you know the nuances of creating a great protagonist? Let's take a quick look at how you can make sure that you do that. First of all, let's talk about your protagonist. A protagonist, of course, is your central character or characters, whether those characters are quote unquote good or bad. Bad characters are also known as anti-heroes. So if for an anti-hero, you want to think in terms of maybe Jack Sparrow or Jay Gatsby. Whether your character is good or bad, they are the emotional heart of your story, and they should drive the reader to want to know what's going to happen to them. Every protagonist serves a purpose, a primary purpose, and that is to move your story forward. In order to do that, your protagonist has to have a goal. That goal must seem like it's almost impossible to achieve. And you need to be really clear about your character's goal and keep that present throughout your story. Your character's goal might be getting something physical, such as in Bilbo's goal to retrieve the Arkenstone for the leader and son of the king of Erebor. It might be to cause something physical, such as in Once a King, where King Eodrin is his name. I can never pronounce his name. Wants to end a bloody divide and unite his kingdom. It might be to escape something, such as in the Count of Monte Cristo, or it might be to resolve something physical, such as in Rocky when he went up against his challenger, Apollo Creed. And it might be to survive something physical. Whatever your character's goal is, if it's going to be a great book, it's going to involve one or more of these goals. And then your protagonist also has some jobs. So they must be the central force for moving the story forward. They must take actions that build the theme. So shouldn't all be up in their head. They must do battle with the rival. Now, whether that rival is a human, an alien, or a force like weather, or a battle, or maybe some kind of disease. And that battle can be as much mental as physical. And often that the protagonist's job is going to, a good protagonist is going to include both the mental and the physical challenges. And then also your character can't be perfect. Perfect characters are not likable. So you want to give your character one or more flaws. Having said that, every character, with the exception of maybe the anti-hero, although they may have this too, will benefit from doubting their ability to overcome whatever it is that they need to do to reach their goal. Having a flaw makes a character relatable, and that's how readers begin to become engaged in following your story. And keep in mind, flaws don't have to necessarily be negative. A flaw can be minor, major, or fatal. So minor flaws are going to make the character memorable, but they don't affect the story. A major flaw is perhaps impairing them physically, mentally, or morally. And that major flaw will often bring the character's downfall or their death. And those would be flaws such as misplaced trust or pride, greed, or jealousy. And sometimes a character's flaw will contribute to them reaching their goal. An example of that might be stubbornness, with a character who doesn't give up when everyone around them has already thrown in the towel. None of the character's goals work at all if your character doesn't have progressive obstacles. So those obstacles, yes, one after the other, but they also become harder to overcome. How they face those obstacles is what really constitutes their true character. And perhaps, and I would say ideally, their character evolves when they are facing these obstacles. Hard-won success is what makes for a really great story. Be careful about building your character descriptions. There's all kinds of books about how to uh, rough out your character and the color of their hair and where they went to school and all of that. Um, some of those are good and some of those are not so great. But I would also take a look at how you write about your character to bring out those characteristics. So here's a couple of examples. This first one is written if your book is in first person. So here's an example of telling about your character. I looked in the mirror. Reflected back at me were the emerald eyes of my mother, and the same long dark hair framed my flawless face. So that's all telling. Here's how you can show. I looked at my sister. She'd never have a shot at being the queen's assistant. Her plain brown hair resembled that of our father, while mine hung thick and lustrous black. Her eyes, gray as a mouse, mine charmingly emerald. Who would even guess we were sisters? It wasn't something I'd readily claim. So you can, excuse me, you can see there, the first example is how many new writers especially tell about their character. And with the second description, you get to know something about the character in addition to seeing how the character looks. So in this example, you can see that the character is pretty vain, and that may be your protagonist who's vain in the beginning, but you can also have your character evolve. Maybe in this instance, this character has an accident that damages her face, and she's always relied on her beauty. And now she has to develop some other attributes as she goes along in the story. So don't paint yourself into a corner with your character being flawless right at the start, unless she needs to have a takedown later on. So here's, whoops, I want to go back. This was the example of third person. She was stunning. Lustrous black hair hung nearly to her trim waist, and her pale skin made her emerald green eyes stand out in her flawless face. And again, that's all telling. Here's showing. She practiced flinging her long black hair over her shoulder, then spent an hour looking in the mirror to judge the best angle to tilt her head and look up from beneath her lashes in order to show off her emerald eyes. Satisfied she could use these attributes to seduce the king, she slid the thin blade she'd stolen from Arden under the edge of her sleeve. So that moves your story forward and gives a description of your character at the same time. So whenever possible, you want to sneak in these little subtle descriptions that also have an action that moves your story forward. We looked at this one already. But I wanted to say, if you want more of these kinds of tips, I have a novel writing checklist that goes a little more in depth, not only about your protagonist, but about some other topics in your novel. You can pick it up at the link below, or I'll post it below in the notes. And it's absolutely free. I think it will make your story better. Bye for now.